Okay, so we're going to get started. So today we are going to be painting a sea turtle. We're going to start by drawing our sea turtle with pencil, and then we're going to go in and color him with watercolor. So you should have a pencil, a cup of water or a glass of water, your paint palette, paintbrush, eraser, and if you want to tape your watercolor paper down, you can go ahead and do that right now. I just realized that I don't have my paint palette, so I will be right back with that. So you're also going to need some sort of palette to put your paint on. I use a porcelain dinner plate. They wash easy and they work really well, so that's what I'm going to grab now. Okay, so I have my plates. So yeah, I'm going to put us down now to the painting and we can get started. So just hang with me tight while I get this going and down on my page. Okay, so we're going to start by drawing our turtle. So we're going to do it step by step. Our turtle's shell is going to be the first thing that we're going to do. So we're going to do a shell. So I want you to do a light trace of an oval. Not too dark because we might want to go back in and fix it later. So we're doing an oval. So I have to make mine a bit darker because you have to be able to see it, but I want you to do yours fairly light just in case you want to fix the shape later, okay? There we go. So that's going to be the outside of a shell. And then we are going to start here at the top where I want you to do two little things going in, kind of like you're going to make a triangle, but we're going to not go all the way, just a little in because that's going to be his neck. Two slants going in, and then I want you to go up a little on both sides, just two little lines going up, and then his head. So his head is kind of like a pointy arrow. That's going to be his face. Now, where that head started, I want us to make a line. It's just going to show where his neck is. So next, we are going to add his fins. So up here, we are going to add a fin. And you can do yours lightly in case you want to change it. It's just kind of this shape, and you can see how I did a little indent here, right there, just to kind of have some definition to his fin. And then we're going to do it on the other side. I think I didn't leave myself enough room, so I'm just going to readjust my tape to make sure he has enough room for his second fin. So same thing on the other side. His fin goes out, and then I'm going to do a little hook like that. Okay. So next, we're going to do his tail. So I want you to do his tail first. At the bottom, he has this little triangle tail. And then we're going to do his bottom flippers. So his bottom flipper kind of goes out from his body and then down, and then they're kind of stubby. So you can kind of just, they're kind of like an irregular rectangle or square. Do your best. It doesn't have to look like mine. And the same kind of idea on the other side. And he has kind of like these little jags in his fin. If you can try to do that, if not, then just a flipper will do. The outline for this turtle is pretty straightforward, so we're almost done. On the sides of his head, up here, we're going to add 2 eyes on the sides. So 2 eyes, just kind of like we're looking at him from above, so his eyes are only showing halfway. And then we're going to go and make a circle inside of that first circle. So a little circle inside, well, it's a big circle, but smaller than the first one, inside of our first circle. It's just going to be the outer part of his shell. So now is when we can start to draw his shell details. So do your best. It absolutely doesn't have to look like mine because every turtle is quite different. But we're going to do some shapes. So you can try to do this shape. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. And if it helps, you can do it like, do 1 line there, 1 line at the bottom, and then 2 points going together at each side, and that will help you get that shape. And then it gets a little easier. So you can add your other line under, right under, and then you can do your points. And they don't have to be very straight, they can be kind of jagged, or they can be straight. It's totally up to you. So again, we're going to add a line underneath, and then the points coming out of the sides. And then at the bottom, he kind of has just a big one that connects to his outer shell. And then the same thing at the top connects to the outer shell. So now, all we have to do is do lines from each point going to the outside of our turtle, to his shell, that inner circle that we drew. And then our very last step is to put some lines into that inner circle. So he has all of these kind of connecting things going on inside of the outer and inner shell. So we're just putting lines here and there all around the shell. You can do as many as you want, or you could just do a few. Doesn't have to be the same as mine. And there we go. So I'm going to give you a minute to kind of catch up if you have to, or change anything that you want to change up, and then we'll start painting. Okay, so we are going to start painting. So if you are using the paint palette that we have for these lessons, we are going to go in with this terracotta color. So it is the second line down from the top and the very first color. So we're going to take that, we're going to use our brush with lots of water and activate that paint up, okay? So get your paint nice and full of water, or paintbrush nice and full of water, and really activate your paints. And then you can move that paint onto your plate palette. So get quite a lot of paint onto that paint palette, okay? So on my plate, I'm getting a lot of this paint, so we don't have to go in and kind of add more later. So try to get as much as you can. Activate that up. And then we're going to add water. So just dip your brush in water and bring it over to your palette. Make your paint nice and flowy. When we have a consistency that's really watery, something that's going to flow really easy, we can start to put it on our shell. So we can start adding that all around the outer edge. We don't want it too dark yet because we're going to go in and add some dark colors and shadowing later. So now we just want a light wash of color. So just going on that outer circle. Don't worry about going over the pencil. You should be able to see the pencil through the paint. We're going to go over those pencil marks later with a darker color. For now, they're just our guide. Okay, so now I want you to add even more water to your paints. I want it to be really, really light, really runny. And we are going to individually fill in every little piece of a shell. And if you leave space in between, if there's some white left, that's totally fine because it actually adds to the painting. It looks pretty cool. It helps separate the shell pieces. So I hope you can kind of tell. I don't know if you can on screen, but I left a little white around the line. And if you can't do that, then don't worry about it. It's not necessary. It's just a cool effect that sometimes can help separate whenever you have a bunch of the same color all together. So we're just coloring him in right now. Do one piece of the shell at the time. And hopefully you can see that I'm leaving the white. Some places around where I have the pencil, I just leave a little bit of white beside the pencil marks, just to kind of separate those colors. Just helps them look like they're different pieces and not all one glob of color. Because his shell has like these different little geometric patterns on it. If you need to add more water, if your paint's getting dry, you can add some water. Just dip your brush in the water, and then back into the paint and mix it around. It will help to make your water a little more runny because watercolor can dry out when the water starts to evaporate. There we go. So my shell is completely covered now with this light wash of this kind of terracotta burnt red color, and I'll give you guys a minute to catch up, and then we're going to go in and we're going to add a darker version of the same color just to create some definition. Okay, so now we're going to go back and we're going to grab that red that we did before. We're going to grab a bunch of it. So get water in your brush and really scrub, scrub, scrub to activate that color because we want it to be highly pigmented. So get as much as you can. Put it on your paint palette. You can add more water if you need to get even more paints. Scrub, 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 scrub. And put it on your paint palette. Then we're going to add a little bit of water this time, not as much because we want it to be darker now. And then we are just going to go around the outer parts of our shell, or sorry, the pieces in our shell. Then we're going to grab water immediately and we're just going to blend that out into the middle with the water only because we want to keep it darker on the outsides and lighter on the insides. And then what you can do when it's really wet, grab more paint and drop it into the wet paint, or the wet paper. It's going to have this really cool effect. It's going to give a textured effect. So we're going to do that one more time. I'll show you again. So grab your really dark red. We're going to do the outline of the shell. Make sure you leave space between. We don't want them touching or else it just kind of all blends together. So we have that dark red, and then whenever you have that outer layer of dark red, or outline of dark red, we're going to grab water on our brush, just water, and we're going to start spreading it towards the middle. And it should be lighter on the inside of the piece because you've added just water and you've pushed that paint down. Then you can go in with just red on your brush and drop it. Drop the paint into the wet paper and you can watch how it spreads and creates cool textures. So everyone's is going to look a little different. It's super cool. Alright, so we're going to continue to do that for every piece of our shell. Some pieces you can have more red, some pieces you can have less red. You make it unique. So my water. And I got a hair from my brush that got stuck on the paper. Sometimes if you take a dry brush and you just whoop, you can grab it, but this time it's being stubborn. Let's see, there we go. So I'm going to drop in the dark red, just wherever, and let it flow and create texture. So now I'm going to do the top one. Same thing, dark outline, water, mix, 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 blend it. Then I'm going to drop that red in various places to create texture. And remember to try to leave some space where there's light around the pencil marks so that all the pieces don't kind of just blend together. We are going to separate them later with a darker color, but it just helps to create the overall look of separation if we leave a little bit of lighter color or white between. And if you need to grab more red to keep it dark on your palette, go ahead and grab more paint and mix it in. Outer, immediately water, add that water. It can be quite a lot of water too. Sometimes you need a lot of water to make it spread and flow. And then I'm dropping in that color. Water. Dropping in color. You can go back into the places where you see on some that have started to dry that you want to add more dark. You can just add some drops of water. It should still bloom out because it should not be fully dry yet. And if it is dry, just add a little water and it will help it bloom. Dropping in the dark after we've added the water is going to really make it look like it has texture. Because shells are pretty bumpy on turtles, and they're bumpy, and then they have shadows and different textures, so that's just what we're doing with that. So adding in the dark drops really helps create that illusion of an uneven shell surface. And if you want it to be darker than mine, you can definitely go right into your paint palette when you're dropping. You just want to go right into your paint palette with lots of water on your brush, grab a lot of color and dab it on. It will be really cool as well to create some really dark pieces. And if your paper started to dry in places like that, I was just trying to add it there, but it was a little bit dry, just add a little water on top and it will help it to spread better. So last one on his shell, the outline, filling it in with that water, and then going in and dropping that dark color to create those shadows. Now I'm going to go back and add even more of that dark color in places where it already started to dry, where I think it could use a little more definition. And then we're going to add water drops on top and we're going to watch the magic happen. So watch this. With a wet brush, you just have to touch those places and they are going to bloom out and spread. So if it's a little bit too dry and it's not spreading out like you'd want, water on a clean brush, watch it spread out. It's very cool. There we go. can take a bit of this brown color. So this brown color right here, so the very last row of our palette, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows down, all the way at the very bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4 over. It's kind of right in the middle. So this fourth color, it's a light brown. I'm going to take that with our paintbrush and lots of water to activate it. And we're going to put it on our palette somewhere else. It's a very similar color. It's just a little more brown than red. So we're going to use that for the outside of our shell. So this brown color. And get lots of water on our brush. And we are going to just do the same thing. So we're going to do an outline, just a little bitty outline. And then you can use a clean brush with lots of water to kind of spread it around. And so we're doing the outline in that brown. Then you're going to dip your brush in water and just kind of let it flow in. So around. And if you like the way it looks without adding the water, you don't have to. You could just leave it like that. You could leave some light brown in the middle or the light red from before. But I kind of like to add water because I think it's fun. So I'm using that water to spread it around. If you need to grab more paint, grab it and add it. It can be as dark or light as you want. So right now I'm working fast, so I'm just doing all the outlines. I'm going to go back in with water. And so I'm going to go in and just drop the water to blend it all in. There we go. And while that dries, we can work on our flippers in our head, but I'm going to give you just a moment to catch up and then we'll continue. And you may notice that even mine has a little bit of a splash here where watercolor got outside of where I wanted it to. So a tip for that, if you don't like it, some people think it's really cool. It adds something special to your paint, to your painting that's unique to you. But if sometimes you just don't want a splash, you can try to take some clean water on a very clean brush, gently scrub it over the place you don't want the color to be. And watch this. If I take my paper towel, a clean paper towel, and I gently press over where I just scrubbed that water, sometimes it lifts a little bit of that color and it makes it a little less harsh. It makes it kind of less noticeable. So you can do that a few times, but I wouldn't do it too many times. It can end up ripping your paper, but it can really help just to do it a few times to try to lighten it up. There. And then of course, if you want to go back in and gently fix around, you can do that. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone is kind of caught up, so we can move on. If not, you can just catch up at your own pace. We're going to take it nice and slow now. So we're going to use our paint again. So we're going to do this green color right here. So that is 1, 2, 3 rows down from the top and 1, 2 over. So it's the green that is 3 rows down, 2 over. It's actually kind of on like a vertical across from that red we used before. So 1 row down from the red and over by 1. So I want you to grab lots of that green. We're going to put it on our palette in a different place, okay? So get quite a lot of that green. Going to do all our flippers in our head with it. And then same as before, we're going to do a light wash first. So I want you to add a lot of water to it, okay? Make it nice and thin and light. So the more water we add, the lighter our paint's going to be. And then we can layer more paints on top to add cool effects. So lots and lots of water, make it nice and flowy. Okay. I'm going to start by doing the head. You can go over the eyes if you want, because we're going to color them in black later, but you can also go around them like I did if it's easier for you. So we're just coloring him in. The neck too. And I think some friends might remember if they were with us last week, but I'm going to go over lines fast. So when you're doing an outline, it is really important to try to use the tip of your brush only. If we use the tip of our brush, we can control the line and make it more like even and small, and it just helps us to be able to have more control. When we use our brush and we're pushing it down like this all the way, we get a thick line, and that's harder to have more precision with and to be able to kind of follow the details better. So what we really want to do is we really want to use just that tip. So we're holding our brush basically straight up, and we're just gently touching the paper with the very tip of the brush. And if you want to practice that before, grab a different piece of paper and try it out before you start doing it, because it really is helpful to be able to do the outer lines, like where you want to do the outer line of your turtle so it doesn't go all over into places you don't want it to. It's really good to do that line. So the tip of your paintbrush for the outer edge of your turtle's fins. And then once you have that line, you can go in and you can do the big scrubs, and you can do the strokes to bring it all the way through the fin. You don't need as much control to fill it in. It's just on those outlines, but I do recommend going in one direction. So stroke, up, paint stroke down, up, down, up, down, up. We don't want to be scrubbing it like this, back and forth, because that can rip our paper, gives us less control, and it doesn't flow as well. So you really do want to do those strokes up, down, up, one direction only, and then lifting your brush up and then going back in that direction. We don't want to scrub back and forth. Okay, so now I'm going to do the next one. And I hope you can see that I'm using the tip of my brush for this. Oops. And I just splattered, and that's the fun of watercolor. Sometimes those happy little accidents turn out to be a cool part of your painting, and there's nothing you can do about it. It just kind of adds to the experience. So if you end up with splatters on your page similar to mine, love them, embrace them. It's part of watercolor. It happens to everyone. Okay, so now that we have our outline, we can go in and really do those big strokes. You can push the brush all the way down to cover as much space as you want. More coverage. Fill in that flipper. And now you might be like me and you might need to add more paint, so I'm going to go top up my paint. I'm going to grab more paint from my palette before I do my bottom flippers, because my paint is running out. So scrub, scrub, scrub. I want to get quite a lot of paint again. Make sure we have enough for those bottom flippers in the tail. I'm going to add water to make it nice and flowy like before, because we want it to be a similar color. So lots of water. There we go. And I'm going to outline the bottom flippers with the tip of my brush. going to color it in. The other flipper. And color it in. And then last but not least, his tail. Alright, so I'll give you a moment to catch up, and then we're going to go in and we're going to add some dots. So sea turtles have like little kind of like dot scales that are on their flippers in their head. We're just going to add them in to make him look a little more like a turtle, and yeah. So let you finish up that. Let it dry just slightly, and then we'll go in and add those dots. Okay, so what we're going to do for the rest of our turtle is we're going to take that dark green from before and we're going to add more. So this dark green is actually going to be what the dots are going to be of. But we need to make it really dark because we really wanted to show up against the green we already did. So I want you to grab so much of that, and we're going to use less water. So you can add it to the one before. Make sure it's dark though, okay? So lots of green. And not as much water as before, because that's going to give us a darker color. Remember that the more water you add to watercolor, the lighter it will be. The more paint you have and the less water, the darker it will be. So sea turtles kind of have these lines, so I actually want to go and I want you to use the tip of your brush like I showed you to do this line under his neck. Then you're going to make another little line, leaving a little green. It's just kind of look like he has folds on his neck. And then you can do another one. It's okay if they touch. It's just the shadow of a line. And then on his head, I'm going to add some dots. Just like so. And you could add more dots or less dots than me. I'm actually going to use the tip of my brush in this dark green. I'm going to outline the outer part of the turtle. If you want to go right past where the black's going to be, that's okay, because we're going to add the black in later. So just ever so carefully, with the very tip of your brush like I showed you, you can outline the turtle's head. I'm going to add a few more dots down here with the tip of my brush and just touching it gently. You can add a few more dots. We are going to outline the flippers before we add our dots. It will be easier. So, using that tip of your brush in this very dark green, I want you to just very carefully outline your turtle with green, the dark green, and if it ends up looking different than mine, don't worry, every turtle is going to look a little different. take your time and try your best. It's all about learning. These things take practice. Now, if you feel like you want your turtle to have more dots on his head, you can add more. You can add little dots around his nose, wherever you think he needs them. We're just going to go in and we're going to add some dots onto our turtle's fins now. So as many as you want, and they don't have to be at all like mine. You can do them however you think it should look. You just want him to look like he has these little scales. They could be darker than mine, they could be lighter than mine. It's really up to you. Your turtle, your design. I'm going to do it to the other side. Using the tip of our brush for this to just do little dots. So you're doing, the tip of your brush is going to your paper and you're just spinning it around so gently to make a circle. Or you can just simply dot. Touch up, touch up. Depends how big you want your circle to be. For bigger circles, you need to kind of swirl the edge, the tip of your brush, sorry. Not the edge, the tip of your brush. If you want them to be bigger circles, you're just kind of gently doing that tip of the brush in a circle on the page while it's touching the paper. And small dots you can just touch and up, okay? I hope that makes sense. And if you want your dots to be a little more flowy, maybe you want them to be a little more watercolor looking, you can add water on top of them and let them flow out. Kind of like we did with the shell. Whenever you add water on top of watercolor, it always makes it flow a little bit more. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna give you a second to catch up there, then we're gonna do the bottom flippers. So if you need to add more green, you can, because we want to make sure we're keeping that green nice and dark. So a little water, a little more green if you need it, okay? Then we're going to do the same thing with the tip of our brush in that dark green. We're going to outline the bottom flipper. And his tail. I'll wait for you to catch up. And then we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to take the dark green and we're just going to do some dots on his flipper to show his little scales. And I like the look of watery scales, so I'm going to add some water on top just to let those scales flow out. So just touching your brush with some water. You can even dab them a little. It just helps them kind of flow out. Then I'm going to do it on the other side. But if you like the dots to be more circle and not so flowy, then skip that. You don't have to add water on top. It's totally up to you, and everyone has a different style. So it's about finding what kind of style you like. So I'm going to take water and add it and gently dab a little bit right on top where I add the water just to help it flow. Nice. And then same for the tail, I'm just going to add some dots. But this time I'm going to really blend them out with water. Now you could decide that you want to go back in with light green. So you could add even more water to your brush, make your green kind of like a medium light green, and you could go back in and add lighter dots in between if you want to make it look a little more scaly but not so dark. You could add more dots in between in a lighter color, so that means more water onto your palette for the green, just to kind of fill those spaces in. It depends how much you want your turtle to, how many scales you want your turtle to have. You don't have to do that, you could leave it how it is, but this is totally up to you right now. So if you want to add the extra dots, make sure that we're using a lighter green, so more water, because we want them to kind of be different. We want to create a look of shadows and an uneven surface. So whenever you have light and dark together, just like in the shell where we created light and dark, it's just going to help it look like there's more texture. So light green. You could do that on the head too. You could add some light green dots in between just to create more texture. You could add some to his body too, or his shoulders, sorry, where we didn't before, but it's totally up to you. I'm going to use my brush to really water down his head because I don't want it to look quite as bumpy as his body. So I used quite a lot of water on his head to really blur those bumps because I want him to have a smoother looking head than the rest of his body. His body's a little more, his fins, sorry, are a little more bumpy, a little more textured. And I'm going to give you a second to do that, and then we're going to add his lines for his eyes and the lines on his shell, and we'll be done. So just a few more moments to get your scales how you want them, and we're going to move on. Okay, so now we're going to go into our paint palette and we're going to take black for his eyes. So that is 3 rows down, that very first one. So it's actually between the green and the red that we used. So grab that black You don't really have to go into your palette for this right now. You can just take it you don't have to take it onto your paint palette right now or your plate. You just need to grab it right from the pan. And using the tip of your brush, we're just going to add black where his eyes are. Just a little bit, because it's like we're looking down on him. So the eyes are on the side of his head, so we won't see them all the way. So it's just an indication of the top of his head. Okay, so then we can rinse our brush. And our last step is to add the black around his shell. So we're going to add black into our paint. So black into that red color from before. Just a little bit to make a darker color. Oops. And if I get that right away, I was able to scoop that up. So black, and if you don't have enough red, you can go back in and add the red. So we're creating a dark red color, like really dark. So we don't want it to be pure black, but we also don't want it to be too light red because it won't stand out against the shell. So create a darkish red color, and then using the tip of our brush like before, we're going to outline those pencil marks within the shell. So using the tip of our brush, outline those pencil marks in between. And if you don't feel comfortable doing this, you could also go over it with a dark red or a dark brown or a black pencil crayon later when it's dry, but wait for it to dry if you're going to do pencil crayon. So I recommend starting at the top of the shell. So we're doing all the top pieces, including that circle that we did in the inner circle, and we'll work our way down so we don't smudge our art while we go. So I'm going to do the outer shell as well, all the way around with the tip of our brush, trying to create that small line. Do this inner parts, work our way down. So do it in sections, however is easiest for you, so that you're not smudging it as you go. Don't forget those lines that we did on the outside of the shell, the two circles, the big one on the outside and the one on the inner, because that's sectioned into little pieces as well. And this doesn't have to be perfect at all, because turtle shells are rarely perfect. They have all these irregular shapes and bumps and textures, so don't be afraid to make mistakes. And there we have it. So that's our finished turtle. I hope that you guys had fun with it. I'm going to leave it up for a few more seconds just for friends to catch up and have a reference. I'll also post the reference photo to my Facebook if anyone needs to kind of catch up and wasn't able to finish on time. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it, and I can't wait to paint again. Bye for now.